The high cost of living has taken a toll on Canadians in many ways. Now, a new report out of Ontario is highlighting the growing use of food banks in the province. The report was just published this morning. It's from the hunger relief organization Feed Ontario, and it says that food bank usage went up by 38% last year. The organization says this is the largest single-year increase recorded by the network. Feed Ontario says that between April of 2022 and March of 2023, more than 800,000 people turned to emergency food bank support, totaling more than 5.9 million visits. The report found that much of the growth came from first-time users. That marks a 41% increase in first-time visits compared to the year prior. Joining me now to discuss the report is the CEO of Feed Ontario, Carolyn Stewart. Carolyn, good morning. So glad that you could be with us. This is such an important report. A 38% rise year over year. What does that number say to you?
It's absolutely astounding, and I think it should be to everyone. For us, what it really tells us is that the cost of living is just becoming increasingly out of reach for so many Ontarians. You know, the fact that we're seeing 800,000 people accessing food bank services almost 6 million times in a single year is just shocking, and the number is not slowing down. And we really need to start turning the tide on this issue of food insecurity before hunger becomes the new normal here in Ontario.
And how does that tide get turned, Carolyn? What needs to be done?
We've made some really key recommendations outlined in this year's hunger report, and they really center on three key issues. Firstly, social assistance. This program needs to be revamped and the support provided through them needs to increase. Right now, that is legislating people into poverty. We also need to make sure that we're addressing the affordable housing issues by building more affordable housing, tenant rights. But then also on top of that, we need to make sure that we're supporting workers. Right now, one of the largest increases we've seen is a 37% increase in the amount of working people using food banks here in Ontario. So making sure that we have quality work with proper benefits, and even working with the federal government and programs like WSIB and EI to make sure that workers have proper supports as well.
Carolyn, unfortunately, our connection with you is really poor. We're not able to hear everything that you're saying. I'm going to take a stab at one last question, and that is to get your thoughts on the fact that we are now seeing first-time users. Who are these people that are going to food banks likely for the first time in their lives? Who are they?
Yeah, I think they're people who just, can't make ends meet. I think the pandemic, the increasing cost of living, all of these things are really creating a perfect storm and impacting why people need to turn to food banks. Oftentimes, people will use food banks as a last resort. So they will burn through their savings, borrow from friends, borrow from creditors before having to use a food bank. And really what we've seen is that this cost of living and the pandemic have caused people to use all other methods of support, and now are really being forced to turn to food banks as a means of last resort.
Carolyn, thanks so much. Carolyn Stewart is the CEO of Feed Ontario.